Hi, I'm Charles Mead. I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for the Capillary Council of the Boy Scouts of America. I want to welcome you all to this conversation with our council's key three leadership. And we're talking today about the National Boy Scouts of America bankruptcy and what that means for us here at the local council level in Central Texas. Pleased to be joined today by our council key three, starting from left to right with our council commissioner, Curry Bellamani, our council president, Jack Gimler, and our scout executive, John Yates. And gentlemen, let's start with this idea of looking back before we go forward. And over the last 40 years, there's been a lot that the scouting program has done to improve the safety and continue to develop the rules and procedures that go into making the program as safe as it can possibly be. Of course, the national bankruptcy took place because of past incidents where there were people who took advantage of their position in scouting and abused kids. What would you say, and let me start with you, Curry Bella, on this. What would you say is among the most important lessons that we've learned from this experience that we can take and use here at the local level?
Sure. I would say the most important lesson is that youth protection is our number one priority. We've always said it before, but now we're backing it with all of our processes, with our youth and our adults and our volunteers across the board. So I think that's probably the number one thing that we take away is that has brought up to a different level than it has been before.
Now, Jack, of course, you were council commissioner before you were council president, so I know both of you, adult training is a particular area of emphasis. The idea of youth protection training and for our adults staying up to date, which of course they have to do that every 2 years. What makes that so important that our adults are, even though they may feel as though I've taken the training, how much could it possibly have changed in 2 years? But it's still a requirement for us. Describe some of the reasons why that is so critical for our leaders to stay up to speed.
Charles, not just our organization, but even some professions have required continuing professional education. And those types of courses, taking them brings it to the forefront of your mind and reminds you how important all of the different elements are of youth protection training. And so while it's easy to say, I've taken that class, I just did it last year, why do I need to do it again this year? But because it brings it to the forefront of your mind, and protecting the kids is what it's all about. And so you can't take it enough, in my opinion.
Right. No, I think we would all agree with that. John, I'll bring you in on this because I know from your point of view, you've said in the past how important it was you to have the experience of being involved, having to testify in your position as scout executive in a case of abuse. And what that experience really informed you in terms of how you talk to people about taking youth protection training and really taking those lessons to heart. I think it'd be helpful for folks if they heard you describing some of those lessons that you learned and why that you found that to be so important.
I think it's important not only for our leaders to understand our current rules and take youth protection. I think it's important for our parents. I think it's important for all that are involved with scouting to understand what our rules are that keeps our kids safe. The challenge is that those rules are ever evolving with continued focus on and continued feedback from the field on what's working, what's not. Those youth protection rules have always been evolving. Technology that didn't exist 30 years ago that exists today in digital media has caused us to have to create a whole new set of rules. And we're facing stuff today like bullying between youth that weren't as prevalent 30 years ago. And so I think it's important, not just for our leaders, but also for our parents. If everybody knows simply no one-on-one and two deep leadership, those two policies solve 99.9% of our problems.
So I think we've hopefully made the point to everybody. The idea of having to renew the youth protection training is not to add some other kind of requirement or something that you have to do. It really truly is an investment in what in our abilities of being able to prevent the possibility of abuse. It's not just necessarily dealing with the unfortunate circumstances that have happened in the past where an abuse case happens. But, and I know, Perville, this in particular has been something that you've been passionate about, is prevention is as critical as anything.
Correct. I mean, it's if we can solve the problem before it happens by education. And John mentioned this earlier. I think in 2019, we brought girls into the program at all levels. Well, if you'd taken the YPT in 2017, well, now we're changed. So it's the constant evolution of our program and the prioritization of youth protection.
And not just adults, also the youth that are in our units take a youth protection training also, but because it's across all boards, as John said, when everybody is aware that they're not supposed to have one-on-one contact and too deep leadership, it's almost impossible for any kind of abuse to happen.
And that is a great point to bring up for families that are new to the program, maybe just joining in the fall. There is a prescribed process where the parents or the adults in those children's lives work with the new scouts themselves. And I know, John, you've cited this on numerous occasions just in your own experience working with your kids in the program. How much, I suppose the conversation is never easy, but as a parent, how much more effective you felt you could be because of the information that's included in those handbooks at every age level that helps walk through and have an introductory discussion in this area.
You know, I feel fortunate that not only do I have the chance to work for the Scouts, but I'm also a parent of two kids that have gone through the program. And sure, there are some uncomfortable conversations when you're talking about what you need to be thinking about to prevent yourself from ever being abused by an adult. But those conversations are you're given the manual. You're able to walk through it. Even though it's uncomfortable, you still feel comfortable about it because the material allows you to have a good conversation. And it gets harder as the kids get older. The trainings that both of my two kids had to take because they were serving on staff at the STEM lab was even more intense than just the regular conversations they're having with the parents. And so today, I think they're both prepared to understand what's appropriate and what's not for adults to interact with them, and I feel like that's a benefit that scouting provides to all families.
So let's talk for a moment. I think we've established the importance of youth protection training above and beyond any statutory requirement that the program has. A key part of the National Boy Scouts of America's bankruptcy request was in not only maintaining the scouting program continuing into the future, but also that we were, as a organization, meeting the responsibilities of doing right by anybody who was hurt while they were involved in our program. So that key part of that is the establishment of a national trust for abuse victims who people were abused in scouting. As a local council, we, as well as the other 256 councils locally in the country, are all involved in contributions or are going to be involved in contributions to build that trust fund. Jack, let me ask you first. Can you describe a little bit about why it is that we as a local council decided that we needed to participate in this effort, and why maybe some of the considerations that that you as council president helped lead our executive board through as we were discussing this.
First and foremost, I think it was important that all of the survivors and anybody who was abused in scouting was fairly compensated. But also the other part is the continuation of the program. Scouting is so important in what it does for kids and leadership and training that it was important for the program to continue. And so an ad hoc committee of councils across the nation got together and determined on a council by council basis who could afford what and still continue the program, and how they may be able to make the contribution to let National continue to oversee the program nationwide. and for us to do our best and to help other people at all times, just like the Scout Oath and Scout laws say. We wanted to do our part to make sure the mission of Scouting continues, and our whole board was behind that.
And it is important to note the delineation here. The only organization that did file for bankruptcy was the National Boy Scouts of America organization. So our local council did not. However, being a part, and as you noted, Jack, one organization working together under the umbrella of providing the scouting program across the country, it was important for us to be a part of that effort. Curavilla, as many volunteers and professional staff members have done and are still doing, there are different types of outreach efforts that go on at the local unit level with community leaders when it comes to contributing and donating proceeds, funds, other types of gifts to support the program. It seems important to be able to point out the contribution that our council is making comes not from any of those kinds of funds that somebody would have said, I want to contribute to the council's endowment, or I want to make a James E. West gift, or Friends of Scouting gifts. So describe a little bit about that sort of separation of those funds.
Sure. And I'll phrase it by saying, as council commissioner, I've gotten to meet a lot of other commissioners throughout the country. And we are very fortunate in our capital area council that the monies we put into the trust did not come from any of those sources. It didn't come from any specific gifts or donations or popcorn sales. We were able to get the money from part of our financial portfolio, which didn't impact those. But that's not the case in other parts of the country. I've talked to commissioners, and they've had to sell camps. They've had to really make some tough choices on funding and staffing. So we are extremely fortunate in our council to have gotten through that. But again, the money for that, which we gave, did not come from any specific donations to our council.
And John, I know you obviously have continuing communication almost daily, sometimes it seems, with other councils that are around the country. And it does seem important for us to emphasize and let people know just what kind of leadership we have had at the local level here that has put our position into this kind of advantageous position, as Curavilla described, of having the resources to be able to meet this responsibility, which is important, but also then still very much be in a position where we are honoring the wishes of our donors and being in a position of strength to really carry the program forward here in the local Central Texas area.
You know, the local council isn't just become great all of a sudden. It's a long history of leadership and decisions. Our council's really been blessed over many years, over 100 years of continuous strong leadership from our 15 counties here in the Central Texas community. And we're benefiting today from some of those decisions and are in a position of strength. I also want to comment that I feel like, we feel participating in this is not just important to Safe Scouting, but it's also been a fair process. Our council leadership's been involved on weekly phone calls with other leaders across the nation, and we're involved with understanding how the formula was going to be developed, how much each council was going to contribute, and we've been invested into those decisions. And so I think all of us feel, the three of us plus the entire board, feel like it's a fair process for all the councils.
And I know you brought up previously while we were off air, the other part of that component is the critical nature of the relationships between our council and, of course, the chartering partners who all make it possible for there to be scouting programs in practically every single community that we're responsible for 15 counties. And I wonder, Curavilla, if you might, as council commissioner, you and the staff and the volunteers as well all wind up sometime having to come in where there's been maybe a not as great relationship as there should be at the charter partner level. This is as much an opportunity, it would seem, as to be able to begin to strengthen maybe some situations that haven't been as ideal as we might have liked.
Absolutely. Because scouting is community based. We are spread out among our 15 councils in churches and schools and mosques and synagogues across our geographical area. So we are community based, and those relationships are key. So yes, we have had to go back through and talk to some of those people who had, when things were going well, there wasn't much of a reason to talk, but then bankruptcy hit, and there was a reason to talk to them about what our program needs, both to us, the youth, and to the local community, whatever that charter partner is. So, and we have more work to do.
Well, and to that point, we certainly encourage anyone who is a charter partner of ours who might be watching this. We absolutely, if we haven't already, we want to be reaching out to have that deeper conversation with you about how it is that we can help in continuing to strengthen your scouting program. And those, if they haven't already happened, shame on us, and they will be coming. Let's perhaps wrap up a bit, and we've touched on bits and pieces of this to this point, but it is interesting that in all of the cases, both Kerrville and Jack, both of you obviously have other careers. You wouldn't know it sometimes by the amount of time you spend in scouting, but and then John, as a scouting professional, you all, however, have the commonality of having family, children who have been in the program, and you've also participated at that level as opposed to the larger council leadership level. As we consider everything in this subject, are there perhaps experiences or recollections that you've had in being in that role, in lieu of what the roles that you are serving and responding to today, that really speak to the importance of us as an organization, no matter what the level is, to, in a way, rededicate ourselves to everything that's included in youth protection training and just the overall idea, whether it's not only the unfortunate cases that might happen after the fact, but critically the prevention side of things. And I guess, Kerrville, I'll ask you to
Sure. And my story will be, I have two daughters. And when my oldest one joined Venture Crew, she already knew about the buddy system because we had been using the buddy system in our family long before she joined the Venture Crew. Then when she went off to college and they had an outback where they camped up in northern Minnesota, she was the one who said, we're going to use the buddy system in Minnesota. So lessons that we learn in scouting get applied throughout our lives.
Jack, you similar experiences? Or?
Very consistent. The consistent approach of youth protection training, I think, is very important. As a scoutmaster, I felt like my unit was in good hands and I had good help and good support, and everybody was trained. But scouting happens more than just at the local unit. Our kids go to national youth leadership training, and kids come from all over. They participate in projects that are council-wide, district-wide. And it's important to know and see that even in those trainings where there's other leaders taking that role, that we can have that confidence that the kids are having a great experience in learning those skills. So it gave me a real comfort level to know that I was sending my son into a program that all of those leaders, even though they came from very different areas, had the same type of training and experience and knew the same set of rules that I knew was going to keep my son safe.
John?
I've been fortunate that both of my kids, both my daughter and my son, loved the National Youth Leadership Training. Of course, I got the chance to serve on more than several staffs, and to see the quality of leadership training that they not only do the participants get, but also the staff and the impact it makes on them, and the care that they put into that program, and the care that they put into making sure that all the participants are safe. It's an incredible experience to watch my two kids do that. But I realized my two kids are just representative of all the scouts that we have, that our program makes a difference in the lives of youth. We need to be laser focused now on regrowing our program. We've had this bankruptcy that's caused us challenges. We've also had COVID that's caused us challenges. It's hard if your only recruiting model is to go into schools and recruit and get kids excited, and all of a sudden those schools are shut down. it's hard to recoup from that. But our program makes a difference in the lives of kids. It's too important for us not to succeed. So now we need to get back in the business of growth.
Well, I want to thank you all for your time today on this subject. I hope, folks, that if you take nothing away from today's discussion, it's the 2 points that we touched on earlier, which were key really to the entire National Boy Scouts of America bankruptcy proposal. And that was, most importantly, to make sure that our program is as safe as can possibly be. And with all of the work that's been done over the last 40 years to make that so, it's critical that we all stay vigilant, that we all stay up to date on youth protection training, and that we all continue to make sure that the policies of our organization are represented and carried out, regardless of whether you're having a den meeting or if it's all the way up to a council or a national event. Those rules are there because they work, and it is critical that we all make sure that we follow them. The other piece of this, of course, would be the fact that our program does need to continue. There is a tremendous amount that is provided to young people and families by their involvement in the scouting program. And we all together are responsible for making sure that every single family within Central Texas that has the desire to participate in and benefit from scouting gets that opportunity. And that is something that we all hope that you will be a major part of helping us provide. Thank you again for watching. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach us by visiting our website at www.bsacac.org. Thank you.